When you first get a hold of a controller and you play this game that we call Rocket League, you really don't feel like you're playing something new. Much like football and basketball and baseball and soccer, when you pick these sports up and you give them a try for the first time, you can really sense that you're playing something very old, almost something primal. Like if human civilization were given a complete redo, they still would have discovered, basketball and football and baseball and even Rocket League maybe. But why exactly does hitting a ball around with a car feel that way also? To understand this, we have to go back in time, and I'm not talking about going back to the release of Rocket League or even the release of Rocket League's wonderfully named prequel, Supersonic Acrobatic Rocket-Powered Battle Cars. No, we're going all the way back to a time before anybody even dreamed of flip resets and double touches, before boost management and probably rotations. Before all of this, there was something called Auto Ball, or Auto Bull. It all started with this guy, Karl Kapler. Yes, this is the only photo I can assure you is of him. All the other photos, I don't know if they're him or not, but this one's definitely him. Karl was a German car racer in the 20s, but when he retired in the early 30s, Karl was bored. Like many retirees, he could have settled for just playing Fortnite, but no, Karl was a different breed. He needed something raw, something pure, and he needed something involving cars. So Karl decided that he wanted to continue to drive cars competitively, only this time he wanted there to be a ball involved. Karl was smart. He knew that a traditional soccer ball wasn't going to work. I would venture to guess that the ball would probably just get run over, so he set out to make his own ball for this sport. The ball ended up being 4 feet in diameter, which if you measure the diameter of the ball in Rocket League in Unreal units in comparison to the average hitbox, and then compare those ratios to a 4-foot diameter real-life ball to that of a 1920s German car, would you believe it, it's actually exactly the same. It's at least pretty close. I'd say the car is a little bit too big in comparison to Rocket League, but that's all beside the point. In the first match of Auto Ball in recorded history, Karl faced off against a local car dealer and fellow gentleman racer, Willy Engesser. That's right guys, the first ever recorded Rocket League match was actually a 1v1, because who wants to worry about rotations? Well, needless to say, Karl basically pounded old Willy. I mean, he had somewhat of an unfair advantage. He'd basically invented the game, kind of like that time Kronovi absolutely beat the snot out of Mike Rules in an early 1v1 for Rocket League. It just wasn't fair because, Kronovi had invented the game, and he did things like pick the diameter of the Rocket League ball. Karl had a long, illustrious career as an auto baller. By the way, it wasn't called Auto Baller at this time. It didn't have a name. They actually called it this later, but regardless, he had a long career. He logged a total of 3 more matches. That's right, 4 total matches of Auto Ball. Think about how bad you still were after 4 matches of Rocket League. Our poor man Karl didn't even get a chance to even dream about hitting a breezy flick. Karl fully retired from competitive car stuff in 1935, and basically when Karl retired, the game pretty much died off quickly. We'll get back to this later, but there's kind of a reason for this. Without even realizing that they were actually reinventing an old German sport, Brazilian racer Mario Torino actually ended up playing Auto Ball, sort of accidentally, with his car in the 70s. The story goes as follows. A factory that actually created balls, or you could call it a ball factory, created a commemorative ball for the Brazilian national football team, and guess what? It was about 4 feet in diameter. Now you might be thinking that the team got the ball and they were like, hey, let's go get in our cars neat Mike style and hit this ball around. But you're actually wrong. The ball just sat in the factory, gathering dust. Now this is where it gets really juicy. Someone in the factory had a really great idea. They went and got one of their horses and decided they were going to create a new sport called equestrian soccer. I'm not making this up, guys. But it turns out horses actually suck at kicking balls. One horse ended up breaking its leg, no joke. So the ball got passed around and eventually ended up in the hands of this person, Brazilian racer, Torino, and he was actually driving along one day and he had a wonderful epiphany. So basically some kids were playing soccer and they kicked a ball and it came flying at his car, and in that split second, in that moment, he had a decision to make, either dodge the ball or run it over. He chose the third option. He decided that he was going to maneuver his car such a way that he was going to kick the ball with his car. And this actually marked the rebirth of an old unrecognized German sport that we talked about earlier, now known as Auto Ball. Now this time though, there was a full-blown league with venues and matches and games of 2v2 and up to games of 6v6. That's right, that would be like chaos with 2 more cars on the pitch, which sounds absolutely miserable. Arguably the best part about Auto Ball in Brazil was that there was a referee on foot running around like a maniac trying to not get run over and die. Now at this time the sport was reportedly rather destructive and dangerous, with cars experiencing what we would call, I guess you'd just call it a real life demo. Kickoffs were especially destructive as they function much like kickoffs in Rocket League. That's right, though obviously the stakes are a bit higher when you know that if you both commit fully, you're both probably gonna perish in a fiery death playing a really stupid sport in front of like 200 people. So it was basically chicken, and usually one car would back out and let the other car just have the ball, but you know, they would defend themselves by calling it a fake kickoff. But really they were just scared. Some of the larger events had upwards of 15,000 fans. Throughout the years, the sport died and was revived multiple times, with later revisions focusing more on positioning and technique than just destruction and death like the initial versions. These later iterations included more stringent rules to keep players safe, and they actually had official, relatively low-powered cars that were quite small that everybody had to sort of like make it so that everybody had the same hitbox basically, and it made the playing field a little bit more level. Like, it's not fair if you're driving like a McLaren and I'm driving like a Volkswagen Beetle. The game became more popular with average auto and soccer fans with what was known as the Yugoslav League. This league was prominent in the late 70s, but after the 70s, the game was mostly gone due to the death of the main car's production, so the car stopped being made, as well as the untimely injury of Autoball's star player, Pavle Komnenovic, I think, who was made famous by winning the first match of the season at the very end of the game with a game-winning goal. Well, he quit the game when he flipped his car over the ball and broke some bones in the process. Now, many of you know the last iteration of Autoball, which came in 2005 as the popular show Top Gear actually revisited it. Top Gear didn't reinvent it, they just showcased it and really helped it gain a good amount of popularity again. Now, the game actually came full circle back to Germany in 2007 with a sort of revival of the sport through the game show Schlag den Raab. On the show, contestants would face off against the host, Stefan Raab, and Autoball was featured basically as one of the things people would do against him. And he was actually really good at it. So due to this and other promotions of the show, like that of Top Gear, the sport really had a revival in the 21st century, with the World Autoball Championship actually coinciding with the European Football Championships in 2008 and 2012, along with the World Cup in 2010 and 2014. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that the real-life sport of Autoball has had at least some influence on the creation of supersonic acrobatic rocket-powered battle cars and also Rocket League. They had to know when they were making this that this already existed. They weren't creating something completely new. You know, I feel like the story of Rocket League is really the same as every iteration of Carball. It's always reinvented somewhat unwittingly. You don't realize you're doing something very old when you start playing car soccer. The sad reality is that there are some sports and games that are just beyond the physical world and what's possible within the physical world. And in my opinion, car soccer really is one of those things. That's why Rocket League has had way more success and a way bigger fan base than like any car soccer in real life could ever have. Take Neat Mike's classic video that may or may not have gotten him in some trouble, where he plays Rocket League in real life. So he had this idea, let's get a real life ball and a real life car and let's play some Rocket League in real life. Similar to these other videos where people took remote control cars and played with a small ball on a field. Great idea, right? Well, not so much. It always sounds fun. It always sounds like it'll work. This time, Rocket League in real life will be fun. I know it, but it just never is. I mean, I'm sure playing Autoball is great. I'm sure I could get into it if I watched it enough. But I just want to hand Carl Kapler, the original inventor of the sport, I just want to hand him a controller in a good like 30 minutes out on the pitch with a car and see what he thinks. What Psyonix did was they took a great idea, a grand idea, let's play soccer with cars, and they took it exactly where it needed to go. There's only so much a regular car and a regular ball with regular physics can actually accomplish. So let's make the car actually a rocket-powered car, and let's give it an unrealistic amount of maneuverability, let's say. And let's make the physics a bit outer space-like, so even more is possible. Let's make it possible to demolish other players' cars without anybody getting hurt. Actually, the more I think about that, we really don't need that part of Rocket League for it to be great. So what do you think, guys? Have you ever watched Autoball, and what do you think of it? Another question, what if there was a new, sort of different way to make the sport better? Maybe you don't have to make it exactly like Rocket League, but what are some things that they could do to make it more interesting? And I guess more like high-paced. Now here's one idea I've had that I think could have some potential. Obviously making the cars able to fly is not really possible in real life, but even just adding the ability to jump would change everything. Now, this isn't gonna work with real life cars more than likely, just like putting rocket boost on the back of a car is, yeah, it's just a bad idea. But what about remote control cars? Maybe that's the future of Autoball. They could jump, right? What if there was like a little thing that popped out of the bottom of the car, like a spring, and it made the car jump? So that if you were good enough at the game and you could get the ball on top of your car, you could, hit a button and your car would pop the ball over someone. I mean, that would be a start, right? I feel like there's potential for real life car soccer. We just have to really think about it. I'd be really curious if someone with like an engineering background or just somebody way smarter than me could think these things through. Well, there you guys have it. The untold story, not totally untold, but I'm guessing most of you don't know this whole background of car soccer. Hope that you guys enjoyed it. Much love. Make sure to subscribe for more videos like this, and make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.